Well, Pam, you don't have cameras, but your neighbors do.
Yes.
And some of those cameras look onto your property. How do you feel about that?
Do you give them a show?
No, not for free.
Welcome to Millennial, the home of pretend adulting and real talk. No April Fool's Day nonsense here. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Pamela.
Something true and wonderful did happen over the weekend. I met Chloé, finally. She's been working for us for 3 years, and she was driving from Salt Lake to San Diego, which is a big drive for one day.
Yeah.
That's a good 10 hours, if not more. Vegas was a perfect middle point, so she stopped in at a bar I was at, which was not originally the plan, but it was Easter Sunday, and I had brunch plans with my friends, and after our brunch, everybody wanted to still hang together and get a drink somewhere else, so then we went to this pirate-themed bar called Stray Pirate, and I recommend this bar to everybody who comes to Vegas. It's a very fun, tiki, pirate-themed bar, and I said, Chloé, if you're not hungry, because we were planning on getting pizza nearby this pirate bar. If you're not hungry, do you want to come over here? And you can also meet all my Bumble friends. And she was down for it. And I give her credit, throwing her to the wolves at the last moment. This wasn't planned that she would be meeting 8-ish strangers in the middle of a long-ass drive. So I give her a lot of credit for coming to this bar and meeting everybody. But yeah, we hung out. We took a picture. It's on social if it's not already. It's on my social right now anyway. And yeah, it was a good time. And she was shocked. I suggested we take a picture together.
Y'all were very cute. I just have to ask Andrew, because it is being pointed out in the Discord by Justin and now Rex. Have we confirmed that Chloé actually made it to her final destination? Because we know how you feel about Lake Mead.
Oh, the insinuation is that I killed her while she visited? Really? Really, y'all? I mean, come on. Yes, she made it to her final destination.
The people are asking. I'm just reporting. Don't shoot the messenger.
I appreciate that. No, yeah. It was kind of funny, too, because we asked one of my friends to take a picture of us in this, like, little photo area, and he took a single photo. And Chloé was like, that's it? Just one photo? Chloé's like, no. We need more takes. We need more options to work with. Don't you know I'm a social media manager? But anyway, it was very nice to meet her, and we had a great time. And I just love that she ended up having to meet all my Bumble friends.
I love how you refer to this as her being thrown to the wolves. Like, how are your Bumble BFF friends?
Well, no, but just imagine being in the middle of a 10-hour drive, and then you have to meet up with 8 strangers, like 5-6 hours into your drive. Just like mentally, to me, that sounds like a lot.
Oh, trust me, even if I hadn't done a 10-hour drive, if I was just coming down to chill with you and last minute, it was like, hey, I want you to meet 8 of my friends. I mean,
yeah,
you're one of my best friends, so I would do it for you, but I would definitely be like internally unhappy about it.
Yeah,
well, then
right.
also, but like meet me for the first time off camp,
yeah,
like off the internet,
right.
So that I could see how maybe she might have already been nervous just to meet you in person. So then to meet 10 other people too.
And she didn't have a drink. All she had was Diet Coke and a popcorn at the bar. And
you're going to say Diet Coke and a dream.
Well, probably a dream too.
Oh, man. Small town girl.
Dream of the perfect photo spot.
Small town girl with a Diet Coke and a dream.
In a pirate bar near the strip. What a day for her. What an Easter Sunday for me too.
Couldn't have written it better.
Oh my God, there was somebody fully dressed. I don't think this was before or after Chloé was there. There was somebody fully dressed up as an Easter bunny in the bar, just like a patron of the bar.
I thought you were going to say Jesus.
Oh, I wish. That would have been me. I should have dressed like Jesus, come to think of it. Well, anyway, before we get into some newsy topics today, don't miss the latest After Dark available on our Patreon from last week, in which we talked about compulsory habits we've carried with us thanks to childhood and how we were raised. And as always, the chat went in an unexpected direction. Case in point with this After Dark, we started talking about a certain tick I've noticed about Laura and Pam that I've been editing out, and I revealed it to them for the first time. And now I hope you're not insecure about it or anything. It's just a thing you two do.
New insecurity unlocked.
It's just going to happen.
I've also heard that you two sound pretty darn similar. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
I feel like you told me that Mark says sometimes we sound similar.
Yep. 100%. And see, I just did the thing. Remember I told you?
I know.
I picked up. So Pam does this thing where when she's agreeing with something you're saying, she says 100%.
But only if I really mean it.
Yes. I
Okay, good to know.
I have picked that up from her. And none of it was intentional. It just happened. People who I like and respect just rub off on me. So now I'm doing the thing. And it's funny to me that as we're discussing how Mark says we sound kind of similar, I'm over here like doing a Pamism.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. I think we do sound kind of alike.
Yeah. It's funny because I think that whenever we've said that before, people that listen to the show go, oh, I could tell you guys apart easy. And that's especially funny to me because I'm thinking like if even Andrew and Mark sometimes confuse our voices or our cadences, that's kind of impressive because they, spend more time with us than the listeners
Well, yeah,
do.
especially
So,
Mark, given that
yeah,
you
guys
two
live
live
together.
Yeah.
He's your penguin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably when crosstalk happens too, right? I can imagine if Pam and I are both talking at the same time, it's probably really hard to tell who's saying what because we have really similar like vocal affectations.
Yeah.
So
And mid-tone voices too. It's not like super high or anything like that.
Yeah. Sometimes when I'm editing, you're both laughing at the same exact time, and I cannot tell the difference in those moments in particular.
Oh, I kind of love that. That's very sweet.
Oh, I love
It is
that.
cute. It is cute.
Thank you for saying that because Pam has a really cute laugh. So that makes
you have
me
a
feel
cute
really
laugh.
good. Oh, thank you. Oh my God, y'all.
Speaking of voices, I said this to Chloé yesterday. She actually sounded different in person than I expected. And I didn't mean it in a bad way. I think what was going on was I've only spent time with her through the internet. So, the mics kind of make you sound a little different. And then meeting her in person, I just kept noticing it the whole time. I was like, this is not Chloé. I mean, it was, but it was, you know what I mean? Like it was bizarre.
Some people do sound different. I learned this in high school because I used to take this documentary film class and I would always end up having to narrate the little school documentaries we would do. And the reason that they would pick me is because they said that I sounded the most the same. So it wasn't as jarring.
Oh,
so some
interesting.
people do actually record or sound different, more different than they would in person. Like everybody sounds a little bit different, but I actually think both of you sound the same.
Do you think that's also because you've spent so much time with us in real life? Because that's what I was thinking was going on with
Maybe,
Chloé.
but I also don't remember. I feel like I would have remembered meeting you both for the first time and realizing that you guys sounded way different.
Okay.
Like, yes, it's more like surround sound, right? Because voices are dynamic.
Right.
And the mic can only do so much. But
yeah.
Some people just don't, they don't quite sound like themselves over recording. And I don't know why that is. I guess it's just like the slight distortion. It's probably the compression, honestly.
Well, I was going to say the microphones capture different parts of your voice too than like your ears will. So that's probably part of what's going on. Well, anyway, more talk about our voices on last week's After Dark, and we'll talk about this week's After Dark later in today's episode. I wanted to talk about vinyl records and CDs and vinyl variants, and of course, Beyonce, Cowboy Carter was just released last week. But I wanted to mesh all these together because there's a through line. First of all, some new sales numbers came out pertaining to vinyl records. Vinyls actually outsold CDs for the second year running in 2023. There were 43 million vinyls sold in 2023, and that's actually 6 million more units than CDs in 2023 that were sold. How many vinyls and CDs did we buy in 2023? I was 0 CDs, maybe 1 vinyl.
0 across the board. I did not buy any.
I think I must have bought about maybe 5 vinyl.
Laura, do you collect vinyl at all? Do you have any vinyl in the house?
I do have some vinyl, but it's stuff I bought a really long time ago. I don't presently collect anything.
Do you have a record player?
No.
Okay.
Mark wants one, though, so we'll probably get one eventually.
Oh, okay.
Fun.
I just don't have it yet.
Those of you who listen live on Tuesday nights, you will know that Pam actually kind of shows off her vinyl collection in the background of every episode. She's got all her vinyls there. She's always displaying one. And she's got her record player right there, too. I love that.
I switch it out every week. It's a fun little Easter egg for all of you to keep an eye on.
Every week? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Huh,
Unless I really like an album and I feel like I need to be listening to it a second week, I try and rotate through my collection. So
there was another surprising stat in this report. People are still buying cassette tapes now, not at the volume of vinyls or even CDs. In fact, the cassette piece of the pie is quite small. 436,000 cassettes were sold in 2023. However, that's down just 0.75% compared to 2022. I was very surprised by this. I know some artists still sell cassettes, and big ones who primarily appeal to Gen Z and millennials, the types of people who maybe don't have cassette players. But if you go into like Urban Outfitters, you'll see some artists selling cassette tapes, namely Taylor Swift, I think Billie Eilish. I have a hard time grasping the cassette tape thing, though. With vinyl, they're fun to collect. You have the record player, and they're great to display. That's probably one reason why they had a comeback. Cassette tapes, though, what really is the appeal? You can display cassette tapes, but it doesn't look as good as displaying vinyl.
I guess it's just a vintage thing, which is so weird to say.
Yeah, like these people surely don't have cassette players, right? It's just
right.
Yeah.
Thrifting is big. I feel like every time I go to the thrift store, I see some kind of ancient boombox concoction that you could play tape on. So
ancient boombox concoction. A CD cassette player combo, that type of thing?
Yeah, but not anything that looks like the futuristic looking ones we grew up with. You know, the ones from the 90s and the early 2000s were really bulbous. And the ones that I usually see are very square and large. And they usually have multiple tape decks and stuff like that.
Yeah. I did actually Google around to try and figure out why people still like cassettes. And there's actually a group of people who just like the sound of cassettes. I'm going to quote a couple comments from Reddit. One person said, "I just like them. Something about seeing 2 spools encased in a plastic shell rotating and making analog sounds attracts me. Putting digital music on cassette tape feels like giving that music back its soul." That was the top upvoted comment on this Reddit thread that I found. And then another one said, "Modern cassettes have the collectability of vinyl with the portability and cheaper price of CDs. Yes, the audio quality isn't as good as either of those, but that warmth to me adds an intimacy to the music, absent from the digital version."
Interesting. I really like that first comment, though, because it sounds so almost whimsical, but when you think about the way that music has traditionally been recorded, at some point we switched from recording music in analog to recording digital. And so all of the old stuff, there's a really great documentary, by the way, called Sound City. If you guys haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend that. It stars Dave Grohl and also Paul McCartney and a bunch of other rock and roll greats, but they talk about this old recording studio, this legendary recording studio called Sound City out in LA. And a lot of what made recording high stakes back in the day is that you only had so much tape. There was only so much analog. So it was really expensive, and it was also really expensive to go over. So I can see why somebody would think about that and romanticize the practice of putting new stuff on old medium again.
Is it something to do also, Pam, with the sound? And I think it's called tape hiss is the sound. You know, basically you put a cassette in, you push the play button, and before any music starts playing, you just hear that slight hissings. It's not even hissing, but
Don't do it. The ASMR haters will turn
yeah,
off the
no,
show.
I'm not gonna
It's almost
replicate
like
it.
white noise.
Yes.
I
you get it
think
from
so.
vinyl too, I think.
It's
right?
more of a pop with vinyl, but yes, similar. But you're right, Laura. It's a different vibe. And even like, I mean, those sounds are so nostalgic probably for people our age too, because you get a similar sound. Do you guys remember what it used to sound like to rewind VHS, for example?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Like, I feel like cassette tapes do, like, not in the way that they're being sold now, but I feel like there is like so much nostalgia. I used to, this was before our time, but I definitely used to like make my own cassette mixtapes, and I would record stuff from the radio because you could if you had the double tape deck and stuff like that. I wish stuff like that would come back in fashion. And then maybe, if people started sending me mixtapes, I would invest in one of these cassette tape players.
Yeah. Well, I guess, and I think one of the Redditors was saying this, like, that's the fun of cassettes even these days. You can make a mixtape if you want. And by the way, speaking of mixtapes, some of the top selling cassettes over the last year were the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtracks.
That's clever.
Yeah.
As was Taylor Swift, of course.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, my recommendation for the week, custom vinyl dividers. I actually got these for Pat a few years ago. They're wooden. And so you can order these dividers from Etsy, and by default, they have genre options like classic rock or jazz or pop. But you can ask this guy, and we'll include a link in the show notes, to write custom genres on these divider tabs. So for Pat, I got one that said Pat Pop, one that said like crooners or something like that, which is for like his Sinatra and Dean Martin. I just wanted to do custom ones that like fit his music interests, and there wasn't any extra price. So I definitely recommend buying these if you want to sort your vinyls.
That's cool.
Pam, I'll get one for you called Pam Pop.
Pam Pop, that's cute.
Oh.
Let me go order that. We'll take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about vinyl variants and recent drama around those. One reason we wanted to talk about vinyl this week is because there's actually been some debate about all the variants that artists release these days. And Billie Eilish stoked the fire when she started calling out artists who are selling many variants of the same album for a cash grab. She said, "I can't even express to you how wasteful it is. It is right in front of our faces, and people are just getting away with it left and right. And I find it really frustrating as somebody who really goes out of my way to be sustainable and do the best that I can and try to involve everybody in my team in being sustainable. And then it's some of the biggest artists in the world making fucking 40 different vinyl packages that have a different unique thing just to get you to keep buying more. It's so wasteful, and it's irritating to me that we're still at a point where you care that much about your numbers and you care that much about making money, and it's all your favorite artists doing that shit." So she says this. She got a good amount of blowback. She did release a follow-up, and one reason she got blowback is because she herself does a bunch of variants. However, her latest EP, Happier Than Ever, was made of 100% recycled vinyl and other recyclable materials. So even though she's doing a bunch of variants, she is trying to be eco-friendly about it. So like I said, there was this blowback, and then she decided to add a little more to the conversation. She said, "It would be so awesome if people would stop putting words into my mouth and actually read what I said in that Billboard article. I wasn't singling anyone out. These are industry-wide systemic issues. When it comes to variants, so many artists release them, including me, which I clearly state in the article. The climate crisis is now, and it's about all of us being part of the problem and trying to do better. Sheesh." Now, a lot of people thought she was pointing the finger specifically at Taylor Swift. And I think one reason why is because she was saying these people already have all the money in the world. Why do they have to do all these variants? And also, Taylor has a new album coming out very soon. And over the last couple months, Taylor has been releasing these variants in which there's one unique song. She offered these variants for a limited time. They were never all available at the same time. You had like 2 weeks or whatever to buy that one, then no more ordering. Another one, then no more ordering. That really pissed me off. I think it's just so slimy to do it that way. And you're preying on, you're biggest fans who cannot resist getting all 4 variants because each of those has a unique song. And so if you want to experience everything that Taylor is about to put out, you have to buy all 4 vinyls, which is, I think, ridiculous. Pam, I know you have thoughts on this. I think this is even bothering you, what Taylor's been up to, and you're a super fan, so.
Yeah. So there are a couple things that I want to address here. And I think part of it, too, is that the fans get, I don't know why they do this, because at this point, if you're any sort of way Taylor Swift fan that's been around for years, you'll know that these limited editions are not even really limited editions. They always say that, and then they come out anyway. Like I'm looking right now on Amazon, you can still get every single Midnight's variant. Right now, her site from her website does not have anything except for Tortured Poets up, I don't believe, because she tends to do that for bigger drops. But you can still get, yeah, like I said, all 4 variants from Midnight's if you want to make the clock, for example. So that's something that I want to point out. I think a lot of this supply and demand is fabricated, and I think that fans should probably think about the facts before they buy into this whole hoopla of feeling like they need to get it right away. They don't. Mm-hmm. They'll be available later. She will release all of them again. It's going to be fine. But to answer your initial question, my main issue here as a fan is that it takes so long for these bonus tracks to make it onto streaming. And people that are Taylor Swift fans will probably remember that this specifically happened with 2 tracks that were released later as part of Midnight's called You're Losing Me and Hits Different. But I also want to point out that this is the first new album release rollout where she's been dispersing bonus tracks across multiple variants, because when you look at the last release, which would have been for Midnight's, really the only difference in terms of vinyl specifically was the cover art, the fold art, and the color of the vinyl. So you really did not need to collect all of them unless for some reason you wanted the clock on the back or you just are a big fan. But people collect vinyl variants now for all the artists that they're fans of. So this is not anything that's exclusive to Swifties or to Taylor Swift. That being said, it is annoying, especially if you're somebody like me that just would like to have one vinyl version of an album that has every single song, for example.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that doesn't happen. Yeah. Well, like if you look at like sticking with the Taylor Swift theme, 1989, she released the variants, which were all just like different colors again. But there are some bonus tracks that have come out since then, including the Bad Blood remix with Kendrick Lamar that she re-recorded for the 1989 Taylor's version. That's not on a vinyl, but it would be nice if like a deluxe version existed with a vinyl if you were someone, again, like me, that just would like to have a full collection. Yeah. You know? I'm not trying to pick up like multiple vinyls. I don't have the space for that, but I would just like the option for any artist that I enjoy to have one variant that just has everything on there.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to read a comment that just submitted on our Discord. She's listening live. I'm a vinyl girly and huge Swiftie. I like different colors and covers. I think that can be fun. The different songs on each one is annoying, but I know they'll eventually all become available on streaming, so I'm just getting one vinyl for my collection and hoping it doesn't take too long for them to come to streaming. She's not forcing anyone to buy all of them. And I think that's fair. Mm-hmm. However, I just think that there's the diehard fans who will not be able to resist buying all 4 or however many there are up front because they want it now. They want the new music now. They want to support Taylor. And that's the part that bothers me about it, because I think she knows there's going to be the people who do buy all 4. I actually know somebody here who is a huge Swiftie who bought all 4. He told me they also all ship separately. They don't even ship together. Talk about being environmentally conscious. That's one easy thing they could have done, figured out how to make them all ship at the same time. The problem is the ordering windows were all separate. So you couldn't place one order and get all 4 at once. And that's probably part of the reason why they ship separately. But it's just stuff like that could be improved. And personally, I don't think it looks great when you're spending a month or 2 promoting different vinyls every couple weeks. Taylor Swift is a billionaire. She's a great artist. I love her. But I think this is a really bad look.
Yeah. The other reason people are doing this more and more, and she's not even the worst perpetrator, believe it or not, of these vinyl variants, is that it all counts towards the number one sales. So if you want your album to hit number one, stuff like this helps. So the more vinyl variants you have, the more people buy multiples of, the more that counts towards the Billboard Hot 100, which, regardless of what artists say, still matters in the grand scheme of things. I think that Billie's mom made a really good point in this original Billboard article that I did read, just to see what she had said specifically, since she accused everyone of putting words in her mouth. And I think that it was very ballsy of her mother to tell Billboard that they should think about maybe changing the system. Because if Billboard said, hey, we're only going to count the first two variants you release towards your Hot 100 charting capability, then artists would probably not release as many. They might still to make money, but they wouldn't be able to count that towards an accolade that they care about. And they've done that before with other things, not specifically for vinyl, but for anyone that doesn't know, I interned for Billboard very briefly. And while I was there was an issue with Lady Gaga and there was an issue with Jay-Z. And they both had to do with albums being essentially like given away for free on apps as part of the album rollout. I don't know if y'all remember that. And it was a big deal that Billboard said that they weren't going to count those giveaways as sales.
Yeah.
Because it was a giveaway. And also basically you only had to pay to buy the app. I think it was like $6 for Gaga or something.
Yeah,
so it wasn't even equivalent.
Did that with Art Pop, I believe.
Yes.
That was the one.
And Jay-Z also did something similar not soon after. The details are a little bit fuzzy because it's been a while, but I can also say that I heard through the grapevine at the office that he was really upset about Billboard's decision not to count those sales. So
that's interesting. I wonder what impact, if any, it had on U2 when their album was pushed out to all iPhone users.
Yeah, good question. I don't know. Do you remember that, Pam?
I don't think I had an iPhone at that point, so I probably missed the train there.
Oh, well, everybody hated it except for me and other YouTube fans.
But I mean, again, honestly, I don't think it might have not counted. So
yeah,
I think people overreacted to it. It's biased though, because I was working at the Apple store at the time, and I had to deal with so many people who were pissed off about this because they didn't have anything else to be pissed off about. So they wanted to be pissed off about this. And they would like come into the Apple store demanding that we remove this from their phone. And at first, like, we couldn't. Like, you could delete it, but it was still going to be in your purchase history. But then Apple...
They were so mad.
Yeah, Apple actually had to come out with a tool for people to like willingly go in and type in their Apple ID and password and confirm they wanted this removed.
I remember that.
Like from all of that. And people were so mad. And I get it. I understand you didn't want it on there and Apple didn't ask your permission, but you don't need to come in and be an asshole to the Apple store employee about it.
Yes.
And they were. It was so fucking annoying.
That's shitty. Now, as a U2 fan, I have to say I get where people's frustrations were coming from because your music collection is very personal. It's a reflection of you. So for suddenly U2 to be in your iTunes feels like a violation of one of your personal spaces. I'll also say Apple would never dream of doing this now. They try to put on this like privacy forward image, and to insert an album on your phone without your permission in the year 2024 would never happen.
No.
And by the way, Pam, you mentioned some other artists who are all over the place with variants. Like they do way more than even Taylor Swift does. I saw that Red Hot Chili Peppers, they put out 2 double albums in 2022, and both of those double albums have 20 or more variants each.
That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I think is wasteful to the whole point of this interview that sparked everything. because if you don't, I think it was Adele who put out a bunch of variants and then they just like didn't sell. So at some point they have to take them off the shelves because it's taking up space. And a lot of these big box stores that carry vinyl don't have enough space to keep all the vinyl like a record store would. With regards to variants with bonus tracks, I also want to point out that Olivia Rodrigo has done this most recently. Again, going back to my initial point about how these bonus tracks don't hit Spotify very often. She did this with her last album, Guts, which came out in September. And there were 4 different variants. You could get 4 different bonus tracks. She just released them on Spotify last week as part of a Guts Spilled drop. So it's the original album plus the 4 songs that were on these variants plus 1 previously unreleased track.
So that's like a 6-month wait.
Exactly. And that's my beef. I just want it all in one place.
Yeah.
And she might not even do a pressing of that. Or she might.
Yeah. Well, and sure, Pam could just torrent it. She could illegally acquire it.
It's not on vinyl.
I could rip it, put it on cassette tape, give it to her with a cassette player I find at the thrift store. But right, it's not on vinyl, and you don't want to illegally acquire this music. You want to support the artist, but you can't unless you buy 4 freaking versions of the vinyl.
It also just feels a little gatekeepy. Like, I think about, I guess the closest example I could make as a correlation is like when Cursed Child came out, the stage play opened significantly before the book came out with the stage, the script. And that created a divide amongst the fan base because for the first time, we could not all enjoy everything at the same time. And I feel like that's similar with these bonus tracks if you're a big fan and you want to get in on these conversations.
Yeah. Well, actually, the script book did come out the same time the play premiered after previews. But yeah, by just reading the script book, you're missing out on like 80% of the reason why you would want to consume this story. So
how much control do the artists actually have?
I think it depends artist to artist. I'm pretty sure with a bigger artist like Taylor Swift, she's got a lot of control.
Mm-hmm.
But again, going back to this, I really do recommend reading this article about the sustainability interview that Billie Eilish and her mom did with Billboard, because they made another really great point in this interview where they said that if you're not asking the right questions, then you don't even know what's possible, because these big record labels know that it takes more time to find sustainable alternatives than it does just to go with the easy option. And sometimes, too, it's more expensive. So they're not going to make the same bottom line, right? But it is interesting because Billie is also under this Universal Music Group blanket, which Taylor Swift is also under. So are a lot of larger artists to this day because, it's one of like the big 3 recording labels. So if Billie can figure out how to do this, then other artists of her level could definitely figure out how to do it too. But I definitely understand that it's the accessibility of the information. It's not like they're giving every artist, a list that says, here are all your options. At most, they're probably just asking them what colors they want to use for the pressings.
Yeah. Speaking of that, the colors never do it for me. I just want the vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really need anything special personally.
Sometimes they don't even sound that great.
Oh, yeah, I have heard that. The color ones sound worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. You're better off getting a black pressing.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the other colors are awful. I regret getting the Target edition of Midnights, for example, because the pressing on that is bad.
What color was that?
It was the lavender. I got sucked into the purple hype. It looks so pretty.
Oh.
Yeah, but it just doesn't play as well.
Well, I guess part of it is like it doesn't matter because people just want to collect it, not actually play it.
Right. And most of the time, if
do.
they're displaying anything, they're displaying the artwork. You're not actually displaying the vinyl.
Right.
So It's interesting for sure.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So which edition of Poets blah 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 Tortured Poets Society did you order? I think we need to know.
I didn't order. So one of the things that I've been doing on my own because of all these variants is that usually I'll just wait until release day and they'll all be out. And then I'll decide which version I want based on maybe the cover, for example.
Okay.
The cover is more important to me because, again, like I like to display my vinyl.
Yeah.
But this time around, I did actually pre-order technically because my friend Yuki accidentally bought 2 vinyls of like the just original Tortured Poets. So I'm just going to buy one off of her. But I guess if I was choosing, I probably would have picked the Black Dog variant because that just looks really cool.
Okay. The Black Dog variant. Laura and I were talking about this last night, actually. We're really into the Black Dog variant as well.
I feel like I'm talking in a different language. You know, like just like, yeah, okay, Pam.
Variant. Well, speaking of artists, we have to bring up that Beyonce's Renaissance Act 2 came out on Friday, Cowboy Carter. I do want the vinyl of this, actually, because I was saying to you two and hashing it out today that I've got 2 other vinyls with my favorites, and they have a horse on the cover, Bruce, Western Stars, and Orville Peck Bronco. So now here's Cowboy Carter with a horse on the front as well. I want to put all 3 together. I think that'd be super fun. But anyway, it's an amazing album. Pam and I were actually just talking about it and hashing it out as well. What are your favorite songs? And what's your like overarching opinion on Cowboy Carter, Pam?
So my favorite tracks, and I just like capped it at 3 because I didn't want to go overboard, and they're in no order. I just went on track order. If anybody reads too much into it, please don't. So my favorite tracks are 16 Carriages. I guess it's Two Most Wanted. I'm not sure how to pronounce some of these titles because of the double I's.
I think it is because in the chorus they say the Two Most Wanted.
Okay.
I think.
So
yeah.
Two Most Wanted, and I really like Ya Ya too. I think that is a masterpiece. It's so good. And like just all of the different she does this throughout the course of the album, but it really is brilliant how meticulously crafted Cowboy Carter is as a whole. But I think it really shines on tracks like Ya Ya, where the touchstones are so easy to access and find, even if you're just like a casual fan of music. So like, for example, These Boots Are Made for Walking sample right at the beginning. And then she interpolates Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys later. And she also has like a little nod to Love is Strange by Mickey and Sylvia, who any Dirty Dancing fans will probably recognize as well. There's a huge Dirty Dancing scene where that takes center stage. So yeah, it's really incredible what she's done on Cowboy Carter. And I just don't think that anybody really knew what to expect when Beyonce said she was putting out a country album, but I think she exceeded all expectations. And she's really kind of asking us to stretch our minds with, in terms of like what we consider to be country and who we consider to be country enough. And I think she's doing it so brilliantly.
In addition to the 3 you mentioned, I'll throw in another 3. American Requiem, which is the opening track, Daughter, Levi's Jeans. I think those 3 have been standing out to me. And to your point, too, about how rich this album is, every time I listen to every song, I'm hearing different things. Like, there's just so much going on this album. I feel like I hadn't heard the song before. I'm like, I missed that the last 8 times.
Yeah, it's like even like with little things like she has a song on there called Spaghetti. And on the surface, it's like, why would you name a song on a country album Spaghetti? Right?
Mm-hmm.
But then film buffs probably know that spaghetti westerns are a subgenre of Western films, for example.
Right.
And so that ties into this overall country motif, or even like the Love is Strange sample, for example, that I brought up with Ya Ya. Like that song was inspired by a guitar riff written by Bo Diddley, who is like one of the grandfathers of rock. And he's really responsible for ushering the blues genre into rock and roll, or he's one of the main players responsible for that. And so it all kind of like ties back into, again, like the African American experience. It's so good. I'm not even like doing it justice. Please go find some deep dives on Cowboy Carter and like do some research. And I think that your appreciation for this album as a body of work is really going to grow as a result of that.
You're doing great. I'll throw in one more song just for fun. That one's beautiful too. Laura, have you listened?
So I haven't had a chance to spend time with this album yet. I definitely plan to the next time I have a commute, which is like tomorrow. But I feel like you can't exist on the internet without having heard Jolene. And I wanted to ask what y'all think of that. I really love what she did with it and how she made it her own. I mean, Dolly Parton still gets the writing credit for it, I think. But I think Beyonce also made it very personal.
Yeah, I loved it. And I love the intro too, which Dolly appears on. And yeah, it's basically a whole different story. And the reason I don't call that like one of my favorites is just because it is based on another Jolene. And of course, we've heard Jolene multiple times, but I'm definitely enjoying Beyonce's Jolene as well.
I know. I think that you're totally right. And I do think it's really cool that she got, you know, all these iconic people like Dolly, for example, and Willie Nelson to sort of like endorse these tracks as the album is progressing. And that is like also like a touchstone in Beyonce's work. She's been doing these spoken word intros since, you know, the Lemonade days. And I think I would argue that she's kind of popularized that. We see that more and more now on albums. Even Ariana Grande started doing that too over the course of her last two releases. And I think it is because of the Beyonce effect. So I think she utilized those really well.
Yeah.
Cool.
I just love the trend that's been going around where they're lifting the lyric in the song where she says something like, I can easily understand why you're attracted to my man. And they do it as like it's like a carousel type post where it'll show the lyrics and then you swipe and it has it's always an extremely unflattering picture of Jay-Z. And then it's like the man.
I haven't seen that. I'll have to look for those.
Me neither.
Yeah. Well, get on that side of TikTok, baby.
I think I have to.
Well, needless to say, can't wait to see what she does with Act 3.
Yeah.
There's already murmurs about maybe it'll be a rock album, which would be really fun.
I think she's going that way. Like, think about how often she referenced different aspects of rock and roll just in the context of Cowboy Carter. She literally taps into psychedelic rock in American Requiem, which is the opening track. And then she does it again on Ya Ya. And between that and the Blackbird cover, I just kind of feel like she's priming us for that. And I would be so excited to see what she does with that genre.
So to your point about the opening song referencing psychedelic rock, if you play Amen, which is at the end of Cowboy Carter, it goes into I'm That Girl from Act 1, which is the start of Act 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you would put a rock song in part 3 at the end of the track list, and then it would go into the psychedelic rock you're talking about in part 2. Is that right?
Yeah.
Am I?
I think you're right.
That's right.
Yeah. Do you know, this is not related to like that point that you so beautifully articulated, but I did think about you when I was listening to American Requiem because she says with peace and love. And I know that's the catchphrase you stole from Ringo. And I was like, it all works out. Then she goes into Blackbird, which is the Beatles. Like, this is okay, Beyonce. I see what you did there.
Yeah. That was beautiful too. You know, okay, final thought is for some reason when I'm listening to this album and I hear Blackbird and I think in that song you're hearing crickets maybe at the beginning of the track, it's as peaceful and zen to me as the beginning of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disney when you're just going quietly on the boat in the dark and you hear the crickets. That's what I keep thinking of every time I listen to that.
The bayou in Louisiana. See, it all comes back to Beyonce.
Exactly. No, it's just as peaceful as that part of the ride until you go down the first waterfall. All right. Well, I think we cracked the case here. We now know where Act 3 is going. We're going to go and relay all this information to the internet, and we'll be right back.
I have to talk about a really random side of TikTok that I ended up on that inspired this conversation. I ended up on home security camera TikTok, basically seeing people's, Ring doorbell camera videos, people's surveillance camera videos from inside their houses, but also like in their backyards and their porches, above driveways. So I saw so many different examples of all the crazy shit that you're going to capture if you have any kind of home surveillance system. And I thought we could talk about that today because there's obviously concerns about like privacy and security, but I also find it to be a really interesting phenomenon that people are just like openly uploading videos from their home security systems to the internet. Like that in and of itself seems a little bit like a security risk. So I wanted to hear from y'all because I know that we have some different experiences here on the panel. But I know, Andrew, you had noted that there actually either is or there was a whole TV show dedicated to this exact genre. So it appearing in social media is not a first, right?
Right. It's basically a new version of America's Funniest Home Videos. There was a whole show called Ring Nation. So I guess it was in partnership with Amazon Ring, and it was a show hosted by Wanda Sykes in which you're just playing clips from people's Ring cameras. And even just this title feels apocalyptic. Ring Nation. Like we all are just capturing what's happening around our houses 24/7. I do have the Ring cameras, and you do too, Laura, right? We're both basically spying on our neighborhoods.
I only have the doorbell.
Okay.
To be fair, I don't have anything else. Mark wants us to get more, and I feel really mixed about it. Like, I don't want cameras inside my house.
Mark wants them inside the house?
Yeah, and he mainly wants them for when we're out of town, right? So he was like, we don't have to have them on when we're home.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's I don't like it. I don't like it.
Where? Like inside the front door or back door?
In the main like living area near where the entrances are.
I agree with you. I actually had a camera in the kitchen, but looking out the backyard. And the point was just basically to sort of capture the backyard just in case while we were gone. But we have since put a camera in the backyard, partly because sometimes we just leave the dogs out back and I want to be able to easily, I'm on the opposite side of the house during the workday. I want to see when they're waiting by the door to come back in. But also it is, again, it's a peace of mind thing when you're away to be able to see what's happening around your house. But I'm with you on like cameras inside constantly capturing, going up to the cloud. Like I trust Ring, but I still don't love the idea of my house being captured 24/7 inside.
And you know what? Here's the thing. Again, he's not advocating that we should have cameras on 24/7 inside the house. He's more thinking, let's get one for when we go out of town to monitor in the house so that we can know if like there's a leak or something happens, right? We're very traumatized in this household by water damage after what we've been through. So I get it. But there's this like small part of me, even if I intellectually know that a camera is not on, it still kind of creeps me out if it's sitting there. I mean, like, even if I like come to sit down in front of my computer and I'm like not wearing pants, for example, it kind of creeps me out if I look up and I see the camera there and I'm like, intellectually, it's not on. The little green light's not on. I know it's not on, but it still creeps me out. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what it is.
And a lot of people buy the camera covers for the laptops because they don't trust it. The laptop cameras never bother me. I don't do the cover for that. I trust Apple there. But like the Ring cameras, if you're in certain modes, it's allegedly not capturing and uploading the video, but that camera's still powered on. It's still a lens pointing into my house. I don't trust it. I just don't.
Yeah. Well, Pam, you don't have cameras, but your neighbors do.
Yes.
And some of those cameras look onto your property. How do you feel about that?
Do you give them a show?
No, not for free.
Subscribe to Pam's OnlyFans.
That's what Tiara taught me. Can't be giving it away for free. No, yeah. So they do. The neighbor that is specifically right across from me does have a few cameras. And I'm pretty sure the other day I was realizing this. I'm pretty sure that they're motion censored and pretty sensitive too, because sometimes when I'm outside, I hear like this beeping sound.
Oh, God.
And
Great.
I assume it's because I tripped their camera, which honestly, they should make it not so sensitive because I don't think they care what's going on across the street that much.
Right.
I'm sure they also have the cameras because they have a lot of cars in their driveway, and also they have a little girl. So I think that it's just like a peace of mind, right? But I just think, like, especially with them, why do I need a camera? Because if anything happens to my car, I'll just go over and knock on the door and be like, hey, man, can I see your camera footage? Or like, did you happen to see anything happen because my car got broken into or whatever? And the other day when I was driving out of my neighborhood, I also noticed that most houses on the block have, if not a Ring camera that's facing the main road, then multiple cameras on their houses mounted. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. If anything happens, they're going to catch the person,
Yeah.
you know?
Neighbor 2 houses down, looks like Fort Knox over there. They got 2 cameras in the front, 2 cameras in the back, and I think I noticed the other day one on the side of the house too. So it's at least 5 cameras outside. And we're not talking about a mansion here. This is a pretty standard sized home. Some people are just paranoid, and the accessibility, the ease of setting up these cameras, I think has just made people addicted to capturing every corner of their house. And they're cheap too. I think Ring cost me $100 a year to store footage and all that. And that comes with the home monitoring shit. And I'm bringing that up because I don't want anybody to rob me. Don't even try it. I pay that fee.
Same.
But yeah, it's like, okay. But Pam has no security, so just rob her.
Yeah, but there's the motion sensor camera that my neighbor has. So,
Right.
you know.
Oh, I wanted to address that. So yes, on Ring, and I'm sure these other ones too, you can set up like boundaries where it will activate a motion sensor. And I just know that some of my neighbors in this neighborhood do not have motion sensors on, and I'm being it's automatically sending them a damn push notification every time I go in front of their house, because they're just the type of people who do that based on what I've seen them talk about on the Facebook group.
Yeah.
I'm out there watering my plants, and then I hear like beep, beep.
Well, the Ring doorbell,
Crazy.
if it gets motion activated, can go, if you turn the setting on, hi, you're being recorded right now, blah, 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 blah. And I hear this from the sidewalk when I'm walking in front of a particular house. So this damn doorbell is capturing people just walking on the sidewalk and like sending push notifications or recording you.
I think about that when I'm walking Jasper. Do you guys think about that when you're walking your dogs?
Little bit.
Yeah, not so. To my knowledge, I don't think any of my other neighbors have cameras like that. I think I'm the only person who has a Ring doorbell, and I got it for a very specific reason that I can get into in a minute here. But no, I don't worry about that. But what I do think about all the time is that I'm in an apartment style condo. So right across the breezeway from me is my neighbor, right? So my Ring points directly at my neighbor's door. So if I were that kind of neighbor who was so concerned with the comings and goings of the day, I would be able to get a push notification every time that man leaves his apartment or every time his roommate comes and goes. And I just find it so creepy. The push notifications for movement were the first thing that I turned off because I was like, I don't need to know when people are walking by.
No.
I don't need that in my life.
Y'all, when we first moved into this house, the house came with a Ring doorbell, and Pat was getting notifications every time I walked Brooklyn, leaving and coming back. And it also sends a picture. And I said to him, turn that fucking off. You don't need a picture of me coming and going from the house 6 times a day. And he resisted for a while. And I said, I'm kicking you off this Ring account if you don't do it. I don't need that shitty fisheye lens capturing me and I'm looking like garbage. 6 times a day, he's getting a photo of me coming and going from the house. No.
And nobody ever looks good, to be clear.
Yes.
Anytime I see myself in the Ring camera footage, I am just like, this is the most unattractive version of myself.
Like I said, it's a fisheye. It's a fisheye lens. You look like a fish.
But honestly, I originally got my Ring doorbell as a deterrent for a really annoying neighbor who was harassing me all the time. And it worked like a fucking charm. She doesn't live here anymore, thankfully, but we kept it up. I basically put it up because I was like, I bet if this bitch knows that she's being recorded anytime she comes to my door and starts harassing me about some fucking nonsense, she'll back off. And she did.
Yeah.
So it worked. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, that sounds like it was worth it. That alone made it worth it.
Yes. Leave me alone.
There's these new kids in the neighborhood. And a couple of weeks ago, I come back from walking Brooklyn at like 8 p.m. at night. And like 30 seconds later, the doorbell rings. And I go open the door. Nobody's there.
Oh, they were ding-dong ditching you?
Yeah, they ding-dong ditched me.
Oh.
I looked on the Ring camera. They thought they hit it without being captured on the camera. but it's the fisheye lens, so you can see anybody who's in reach of the doorbell. And I was in a mood that night, so I decided to go and be like, I wanted to go and be like, do you need something? Why'd you ring my doorbell? I knew exactly who it was. And then I go to the house, and their grandma is like in the garage, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to stress the grandma out by complaining about the kid. So I just walked back. But if they do it again, I'm going to be having some words with the people of that house. Don't ding dong ditch me.
I mean, you could also you could post the video and then write a strongly worded message on the neighbors tab in Ring. Do you ever use that, Andrew?
I do not. Do you?
No, every now and then I'll browse it and see something interesting. Or if I know something's going on in the community, like there was a lost dog situation that got a lot of publicity here a few weeks ago. And a lot of people were like posting updates on there. So I checked there. But in general, I don't really look on there all that much. It feels kind of like slightly more tech savvy next door.
But still people asking, was that gunshots or fireworks?
Yep. And I'm like, at least in my area, I'm like, if it ain't the 4th of July, it's gunshots.
Oh my goodness.
Around here, fireworks go off like not all year, but kind of frequently. So it tends to be fireworks around here. Or, oh, I saw a man in a hood. Oh, there was a car with tinted windows. I'm okay, it's the desert. So it's either very hot or very cold. So that's why there's tinted windows or hoods.
My favorite is when people share footage of like delivery drivers clearly not giving a fuck, even though they can obviously see that there's a surveillance camera right there. Like delivery Amazon drivers just like pitching boxes, for example. I think FedEx and UPS are probably more guilty of this than the Prime drivers are. But, I understand it's a rough job, but you can definitely see examples of these drivers like pitching boxes with no regard for what's in them.
Somebody once in the local Facebook group posted a video clip of an Amazon driver basically lobbing a package at the front door. And this person was like, I can't believe they would do this, that they don't care about our packages. And I replied, this poor person has probably a million packages every day to deliver. So what if he's lobbing a package at the door to save a few seconds? That probably adds up to a lot of saved time by not delivering to the door. And I also added, like, what piece of garbage did you order from Amazon that you care so much about? It was probably like a t-shirt or something. Like, who cares? This person was getting a lot of hate, not just from me, because I think that's like so shitty to complain about. So they deleted the post.
They probably thought they were going to get so much support.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to go hunt this person down.
Let's get
and make sure they get fired. And everyone was like, "You're doing too much, lady."
Yeah. I will say, I've just from ending up on the side of TikTok that I've ended up on, most of the time you're right. It's just like a little toss, right? And if something's in a box, it's going to be fine. But I've definitely seen some examples of like very aggressive pitches that happen from a far distance away. And I'm like, okay,
if
that's
it's like
not necessary.
overhand, strongly at the door, then that's a problem. But yeah, a nice little lob.
That feels like a personal thing.
Yeah. And guess what? If your thing arrives damaged, you go on to Amazon customer support and they send you a new one. It's truly not a big deal.
Yeah. I will say I have used my Ring before to call UPS and FedEx out when they claimed that they attempted delivery, but they didn't. Have you ever had this happen where they're like, owner not home? You can see on like the delivery notifications or like the tracking for whatever it is you're getting delivered. And I'll go through my Ring footage and be like, no, you didn't. And I'll call FedEx or UPS and be like, you lied. Like, just bring me my shit.
Laura turns on Karen mode, but this is justifiable.
Yeah,
because, if they're lying about the package, it's crap.
Yeah, it's useful for things like that. If somebody's saying that they left something at your door and you come home and it's not there, to see what happened to it, right? Or just to have a general awareness of like what's going on, you know, near your home. I think it's a good thing. But I think the people who like micro scrutinize every single happening around their property, it's a bit much.
It's
honestly,
it's unhealthy, and you just go down these like sort of paranoia rabbit holes. I think you get so addicted to the access that then you can't quit it. And I think that's what happens with some people. And like I mentioned, it's very easy to set up these home security systems. Presently, I do have a camera out front and out back in addition to the doorbell cam. Again, it's a peace of mind thing with knowing what's going on while I'm gone. But I'm not somebody who's like addicted, and I don't have every push alert on like some people probably do.
I have relatives that they must have every push alert on. And there have been many times where we're all at family gatherings together and they just are sitting there watching the live feeds from around their house.
Yeah.
That is wild to me. And I always ask them, like, is anything going on? They're like, oh, no, we just wanted to see what's going on in the neighborhood. So they're literally just spying on their neighbors.
Oh, man.
In addition to making sure that nobody's around their house. They're like, what's going on in the neighborhood? Let's check the Ring cams or whatever kind of cams they have.
It can be fun, like, if I'm back in New Jersey and I want to, like, check the weather at the house. Like, there have been times where I got seriously delayed coming back home because of massive storms here. It was during Hurricane Hillary last summer. And like, I was watching my cameras from New Jersey. I was like, oh, wow, that rain is really bad. I get why we're not flying home.
I will admit that I will watch my live camera feed if there's drama going down right out front.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, because I'm not one of these people who wants to go out and like get in the middle of what's going on, but I also want the tea. And there have been a couple of occasions where I've had some neighbors get into some real extra shenanigans, and it's kind of fun to watch, I'll admit.
I'm picturing you kicking back on your couch, feet up, popcorn bucket in hands, and you're just like, tell him, Joe, tell him. Tell Karen to go fuck herself.
Next time there's good tea, I need you to send Andrew and I the footage so that we can enjoy the tea with you.
Oh man. Well, I think I talked about this on the show a couple years ago when it happened, but we had a squatter situation. It was like a former tenant who had lived here, who had broken back in, and the police were here for a long time trying to like coax him out. And we were just kind of watching the whole thing unfold on our ring because it had been an all-day event of like knowing this guy was squatting in the apartment and the police taking forever to come out to address it. And we were all just like, what the fuck? So we were definitely watching in that instance. Andrew, do you ever creepily watch your neighbors just to watch?
There's been once or twice where I hear a situation going on outside. And actually, I mentioned these new kids in the neighborhood. They were playing like hockey or something in front of my house. And so or maybe they were just like passing a basketball or something. But I did creep on them for a little while because I was just waiting for one of them to like throw the basketball into my front yard and then like step on my plants or something. I just don't trust doorbell ditchers. I thought they were up to no good after that instance. So I was keeping an eye on them. Nothing did happen, but I was also in bed. So it's not like I was going to get out of bed and be like, hey kids, get off my rock lawn. But yeah, I mean, it's a natural curiosity thing. If something's happening directly in front of my house, because that's the only thing I would capture anyway. You have to be, and like Pam, you mentioned your neighbors' cameras are kind of like, you said on your, they probably capture some of your front lawn or something.
Oh, I know that they do because I can see the camera whenever I go out to my car. It's pointing, I know that they're pointing it on their driveway, but because the house is right across from mine, I know that the camera is wide enough to also capture anything that happens on my front lawn, on the driveway. Again, when I'm watering the plants I have outside, I'm trying to keep alive. So
yeah, that's messed up. That just jogged a memory for me. Some of the homes in this neighborhood and many neighborhoods in Vegas, the backyards like back up to each other and the homes are pretty tightly placed together. And somebody had a camera on like their second story, in one of their second story windows, and was looking down into probably their own backyard. But it also seemed like this camera was looking into the backyard of the people behind them. And that person had a pool, and it was like, this is weird. There's a camera basically staring down at me while I'm in my pool or something. And they did bring it up, and I think somebody suggested, hey, idiot, just ask that neighbor then. Don't bring it up on Facebook. But yeah, it's messed up to me that people's cameras like point into other people's yards. That's not right.
What if it's a drone though?
Well, I mean, it's not like permanently flying in the sky, so there's that. But yeah, Laura, I'm a creep. Okay, no, I don't spy on people.
No, you actually just take really beautiful like landscape shots.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And while the camera's passing over a yard, maybe I'm pausing the video when I watch it later.
Well, since we're talking about all of this home surveillance footage, there's, I think, a lot that people have to learn about what your rights are when it comes to your home surveillance footage. So just wanted to give a PSA that you do not have to hand over your home surveillance footage without a warrant or a court order, at least in the US. I'm sure that's true in a lot of other places as well, but only speaking for the US. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable search and seizure of property without a warrant. So if a member of law enforcement ever comes to you and asks for your Ring footage or your Simply Safe footage or whatever, you are not obligated to hand that over unless that law enforcement official has a court order for it. But that hasn't stopped some cities from trying to leverage these home security networks as a way to help them more easily solve crimes that happen locally. So actually in my city of Atlanta, they have launched efforts to get camera to get homeowners with home surveillance systems to connect to a directory so that law enforcement can easily request surveillance footage if a crime occurred somewhere nearby that address. You can also, at least with Atlanta's service, choose to share access to your camera's feed with the Atlanta Police Department and first responders so that they can access it anytime they want. I'll be honest with you, I would never.
Yeah, no.
That's
Hard
too
pass.
much.
Yeah.
That's too much. Would we ever connect to some kind of network, though, to say, you know, hey, I'm open to law enforcement reaching out to me if they wanted to request footage?
No, because I don't even trust that.
Yeah,
I don't
It's a
even trust
slippery
that.
slope.
Yeah.
Sometimes these organizations too, they change the rules and they don't even tell you.
Yeah.
This is not at all the same, but I was just thinking about how my bank got bought out by another bank. So everything merged, and just by accident, I found out that I have to reinstate my beneficiaries because that didn't transfer over.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't say that in any of the forms that they sent over about the merger, which was really messed up. So I'm thinking about it in terms of that too. Like, they tell you once, and then who's to stop them from changing the rules about when and how they access, and then maybe you don't get alerted. And
yeah. And early on in these efforts in Atlanta, and I know this has happened in other cities too, police departments would obtain a certain number of, Ring doorbell cameras to give to members of the community. So it was like a community service. We're giving you these, Ring doorbells so that you can have, more security around your house and have home surveillance. But in the terms and conditions of you receiving a Ring doorbell for free, you agreed to allow APD to access your feed whenever they wanted to. So people were getting something for free in the beginning and not necessarily realizing what they were agreeing to. Ultimately, they had to stop doing that because I think Ring actually got wind of it and started blocking that. I don't know how they did it, but apparently they did. So now a lot of cities are trying this model where they get people to opt in. And I just got to say, if police ever came to my door asking to look at my Ring surveillance footage, I would want them to have a warrant. Like,
yeah. And a really good reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just don't see why you need this. I will say, I have a story about when I was attempting to willingly share footage with the police, because we had another situation a few months ago. There was a peeping Tom that was harassing one of my neighbors a couple of buildings down. And the whole situation, it was very Southern, y'all. So the lady saw him trying to peek into her window and trying to jostle her window and get it open. And he was definitely performing some lewd acts while he was doing this. So she freaked out. She yelled at him. He ran off and she proceeded to chase him. And I was like, girl, why would you do that? And she was like, I almost grabbed my gun. And I was like, well, I'm really glad you didn't.
Yeah, this is quite Southern.
Yeah. So she's chasing him and he runs towards my building. And he ran through our breezeway, which meant I caught him on the Ring. He went into our backyard, into our neighbor's side of the building, because we have kind of a shared common ground yard area where my neighbor has a shed. And he had a lock on it. This person broke the lock and proceeded to hide in the shed. So my neighbor called the police, but it took them forever to get out, of course. And by the time they did, this guy was long gone. Yeah. And I proactively offered to share my Ring footage so that they could have a visual of the guy and put out a bolo on him. We sent it to an email address they gave to us. A few days later, another officer comes out, ringing our doorbell, asking us, can we have your footage from that day? We were like, we already gave it to you. And the officer said, yeah, he forgot to attach it to the police report. So we actually don't have it. And I was like, okay, but we emailed it to you. So you definitely still have it, but whatever. So we sent it again. 2 weeks after that, neither of us was home. We were at work. And an officer shows up again, ringing our doorbell. And I know it's the same thing, that for whatever reason, they can't fucking figure out how to attach this footage to their goddamn report. So at this point, we've had the local police try 3 times to get footage from us that we are willingly handing over. So it's just really frustrating to be like, this is a case where I actually want to give it to you.
Right.
But for whatever reason, it's just not.
I guess if I were you, I would have just given it to the neighbor and been like, here's my footage. You deal with the police. This is your problem. Peace out. Trying to help, but they're not helping. So
I did give it to her, and she was like, I'm going to put it up on Nextdoor. And I was like, all right, like, you do that. I don't care.
I'm all for helping neighbors out too if they actually need the footage, but otherwise I'm not just going to like link up my Ring system to the cops at any point or anything like that. Hard
but apparently
pass.
They have something like 20,000 people who have in Atlanta, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, those people probably also have thin blue line flags flying outside their front door.
Oh yeah,
it's always the Trumpers that have the most cameras, let's be real.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I have a nutcase around the corner from me, and I swear to God, every time I walk by his house, there's a new camera up because he's flying a Trump 2024 flag and doubling down now.
Yeah. He's like, here, let me buy this $100 camera to protect my $10 Trump flag.
Yeah, exactly.
Trumper math, let's call that. Pam, what's coming up in After Dark this week?
Ooh, we're going to talk about getting petty and when we become particularly petty. This was inspired by a recent survey that came out a couple of weeks ago, polled 3,000 people. And it turns out if you're also petty, sometimes you're not alone. So we're going to be breaking down some of those stats and then also divulging when we're petty in particular. And if you're listening live on Discord, we actually have a new text channel right under the Millennial live stream channel. It's called Sound Off, and we started a thread in there. So if you want to participate in this discussion live, you can pop over there and tell us about instances in which your pettiness comes out, and we'll read some of your comments live on air. We're trying something new out, so hopefully y'all participate and we can use this feature going forward.
I got a pretty good petty story, I think, and you all can actually see it for yourself somewhere online. I'll show you where.
So excited.
Oh, I'm on pins and needles. Well, if you're on pins and needles too about Andrew's story, After Dark is part of Mega Millennial, which is the main show ad-free with After Dark attached to the end. If you're a Spotify user, you can tap into the show, then click the Patreon banner. You'll be able to access the Patreon audio benefits like Mega Millennial right within Spotify.
Then we have other Patreon benefits like our roll call benefit. We recorded a new one of those last week. Pam called Laura and I, and we shot the shit for a little while. And in this most recent edition, Pam was going off about a certain somebody. So we got all the tea spilled. Pam is very bold and courageous. I'll just say that.
That'll come up in After Dark too.
You can also hang out in our virtual recording studio on Patreon every Tuesday evening, and you can discuss the show in real time with fellow listeners on Discord. Plus, you get access to our planning docs, a new physical gift every year, and a bunch of other benefits. So please do check them all out. You can also support us on Apple Podcasts, where you'll get Mega Millennial. That's the main show, ad-free with After Dark at the end, like Laura said. And both Apple Podcasts and Patreon offer free previews to our benefits thanks to the 7-day free trial. And you can get a discount if you sign up for an annual subscription. Time for some recommendations.
I'm recommending X-Men 97, which you can watch on Disney Plus. If you are a child of the 90s, you absolutely remember the 90s X-Men cartoon. This basically picks up where that show left off all those years ago. It's only a few episodes in so far, but it is really, really, really good. I cannot stress enough how great the writing is. The animation looks fantastic. And I love how they're managing to make the themes they're covering very relevant to today's standards. But the show still very much takes place in the 90s, which is cool. It's a great retro vibe and a really great story. So check it out.
I wanted to recommend the Switched on Pop podcast episode called Beyonce's Country. And I also have to give a little bit of a shout out here to Andrew's Pat, because he linked me to this episode when it first dropped. And if you want a little bit of a deeper dive into the first two singles off of Cowboy Carter, then I highly recommend checking out this episode, because I think you'll walk away with a much deeper appreciation with regards to, again, what Beyonce's doing right now as she navigates this new genre. So I can't recommend this one enough.
And I recommended earlier those custom vinyl genre dividers. So definitely check those out. We'll have a link to the Etsy one that I ordered in the show notes.
Make sure you're following the show in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review in Apple Podcasts and or Spotify. Spotify also offers podcast listeners the option to submit feedback right within an individual episode page. You'll see a box under the Spotify episode player that says, "What did you think about this episode?" that you can use to send us feedback about all the creepy ways that you like to spy on your neighbors with your Ring doorbell.
To stay in touch with us, you can email millennialshow@gmail.com or use the contact form or the confessional on millennialshow.com. Additionally, you can reach out to us via social media. We are Millennial Show over on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Threads. And over on TikTok, we are at Millennial Pod.
After Dark will start in a moment for Apple Podcasts and Patreon subscribers. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Pamela.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.